Welcome to Ghoul Talk.
Hey everyone, my name is Chris A. and welcome to Ghoul Talk. I know I haven't done Ghoul Talk in a long time and growing out my beard and, well, here we go. So if you've never been to a Ghoul Talk before, Ghoul Talk is a less scripted, more informal video format that I do, usually focusing on vocabulary, language, things like that. I'm not an expert and I very intentionally don't really heavily research these kinds of videos because the goal of these videos is more to start a conversation between me and you, the viewer, rather than to lay out a list of all the reasons that I'm right. So today we're going to be talking about its pronouns, and there are probably two types of people who are watching this video. Those who are aware of people who use its pronouns, and those who aren't. Now, if you're in the latter camp, really the only thing you need to know is some non-binary people prefer its pronouns, use its pronouns. That's fine, let's move on. If you are aware that people are using its pronouns, you probably are aware of why I'm doing this particular video right now. So I'm doing this video at this particular time because lately there's been some Twitch drama between a popular political streamer and Doe, who is another Twitch streamer, and Doe uses its pronouns. So Doe has explained that it is okay with she and they pronouns. It understands that, you know, some people are going to default to that kind of language, but ultimately it prefers its pronouns as a non-binary person. Now, the drama that I'm referring to is basically that there is a bigger political streamer who refuses to use Doe's pronouns properly. And this streamer is a transgender person themselves, so obviously there's some tension there between a binary transgender person refusing to use a non-binary person's preferred pronouns. Obviously that is going to cause some tension. Now, I don't personally know why Doe uses its pronouns, and I very intentionally didn't look into it before I made this video. I plan on looking into it after this video comes out, but ultimately I don't think it's super important why it uses its pronouns. I mean, it's certainly important, but I am of the belief that empathy in almost every case needs to come before understanding. You know, if you don't understand someone, I think that's okay. But if you deliberately refuse to show someone empathy, I do not think that's okay. And empathy really is kind of the key thing here. This bigger streamer, as well as their audience, have a couple common responses to why they don't believe its pronouns are valid. What's interesting, as I go through them, you'll notice a lot of these are the same arguments that someone like Jordan Peterson or Ben Shapiro will give as to why they don't respect they, them pronouns, or even she, her pronouns for trans women, or he, him pronouns for trans men. So the first argument that you'll hear is that calling someone its is impersonal, it's objectifying, it's dehumanizing. And I understand the instinct there, but if someone comes up to you and says, my pronouns are its, I don't think you're dehumanizing them by respecting their pronouns. In fact, I would argue that it's actually more dehumanizing to deny them the agency to declare their own pronouns, right? And of course, this exact same to impersonal, to dehumanizing, this has been used as an excuse for transphobes not to use they, them pronouns or other non-binary pronouns. And they'll also say that it's dehumanizing because historically it has been used as a way to deny trans people of their gender. So if, in the 80s or 90s, if you saw a transgender woman, you might, not you, but someone might disparagingly call that person an it. Obviously that's bad, but that's not enough to rule out the word it. Obviously we have black people reclaim the N-word, LGBTQ reclaims the queer word. There are so many examples where people are able to reclaim language that has historically been used against them in an affirmative way. So if a trans person decides they are an it's, that's way different than a transphobe placing that it's onto someone. The second argument you'll hear is that it's does not make grammatical sense as a personal pronoun. Of course, we see right-wingers using that excuse for not using they, them. It's just kind of a silly thing, like putting the integrity of your grammar above a transgender person's gender identity. I don't think grammar is that important. We will also hear the argument that its pronouns haven't been used in the past this way, so we can't use them now, which of course is a total failure to understand how language works. Obviously, someone has to be the first one to use it. I've met multiple people who use its pronouns personally, so it is in use, even if it's not very common usage. You know, if we zoom into just the transgender community, it's more accepted. If we zoom in even farther into just the non-binary community, it's even more well accepted. So depending on where you look, it is in common usage as a personal pronoun. Just saying that it hasn't been used previously is obviously just a very silly excuse to not respect someone's pronouns. And of course, people will make the same argument for they, them as a singular pronoun. There's more historical precedent for they, them as a singular pronoun. Even so, kind of a silly argument. And the last argument that you'll hear, which is honestly my favorite, because I think it's the most honest, is it just makes me uncomfortable to call someone it's. And of course, this is the exact same argument that someone like Ben Shapiro would use against me if I were to ask him to use they, them pronouns. He would say, it just makes me uncomfortable. I just don't like it. Someone else's gender identity is not about making you comfortable. So if you are uncomfortable respecting someone's pronouns, that really has more to say about you and the way you feel about transgender people, particularly non-binary people, than it has to do with the validity of that person's gender identity. I think it's okay to be uncomfortable with it. It's new to a lot of people. But to suggest that I'm uncomfortable using someone's pronouns, so I'm just not going to use their pronouns. Obviously, we see that all the time from people on the far right who will misgender even, what many of us would consider a passing trans woman. Again, I'm not here to justify why someone would use its pronouns. I'm really just here to say that they ought to be respected. And of course, it's no accident that the exact same arguments used to invalidate its pronouns are used by right-wingers and transphobes to invalidate they, them pronouns, or just transgender people in general. So it's really disappointing to see, especially people within the transgender community, who are leveraging these right-wing talking points in order to invalidate someone they see as not fitting within their definition of what non-binary can be. And I think that's also kind of a good thing to point out here is non-binary doesn't necessarily mean a third gender. Really, non-binary just means anything other than just a man or just a woman. It's not this trinary where you're either a man, a woman, or they, them. It's these 2 points of man and woman, and then the whole world outside of that is non-binary. So if some people happen to use its, even though those may be less traditional non-binary pronouns, I think we ought to respect that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was informative and affirming to my non-binary viewers out there. And to those who are not non-binary or not even transgender, I hope this just serves as a reminder that let's just put empathy before understanding. And if we don't understand why someone is the way they are, as long as they're not hurting anyone, let's respect that. Let's respect their identity. Let's respect their expression. Calling someone an it isn't really a big ask. It's a word that we use all the time in the English language, so just applying it to a person, to me, seems pretty easy to do. If you like this kind of video, give it a like. Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe, ring the bell, share this around on Discord, Facebook, Reddit. wherever you feel is appropriate. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, or Patreon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in a little bit.